Welcome back to the Volvo Ocean Race. It is leg 10 of the Volvo Ocean Race. It is the leg before the last one. We are coming down to the final miles, but before we start talking about the final end of the race, we've still got this one here. Leg 10, we just started from Cardiff just a couple of hours ago, but in the light winds, the boats are struggling to escape. To talk more about that, I'm joined here with Gonzalo Infante, who is the in-house meteorologist. Thanks very much.
Hi, Conrad.
And so we have an incredible gift for you right now, which are live images from our helicopter, and this is where we are. So we have left Cardiff, the start line, and a bit of a driftathon there a couple of hours ago, and as you can see now, the conditions are still a little bit challenging. Now, Gonzalo, can you sort of talk us through the winds that the sailors, the wind and the current that is affecting play at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, luckily, our race director, Phil Lawrence, timed the start perfectly, just minutes before high water, which means that they managed to start with a slack tide and a building tide, positive tide, that is, as we speak, is driving the fleet towards the exit of Bristol Channel. And in regards to the breeze, we always knew that it was going to be very challenging to leave Bristol Channel and to forecast this breeze.
Now, the winds that these guys are sailing in, they're on a reach right now, but because the wind is so light, you can see that the sails are really sort of sheeted on really, really hard. And can you sort of talk us through how that works? So the fast boats in light conditions means you're basically going upwind all the time.
It's all about apparent wind. Conrad, as you know, we are very lucky, as we were talking about the tide that is helping us and is building a little bit of extra breeze. As you can see in this image, Son Hong Kai's Scallywag is fully pressed, and the throwing angles that we are seeing in the telemetry are no more than 80.
Yeah.
So they really
so they're basically reaching their way on a southerly. We're looking at a little bit of variation across the fleet from true wind directions, coming from sort of 170 around to 190. So basically variations on south. Now moving on from Son Hong Kai Scallywag to come up to the next boat in the fleet. I think it's difficult to see with the silhouette, but I presume that we're zooming into Dongfeng Race Team, so the overall leader on the race. We're going to see once we get a little bit closer. But there was plenty of action out on the start line, wasn't it? It was a bit tricky. 5 boats got away cleanly, 2 boats didn't.
Yeah, I mean, all of them were very, very early at the line. They had to kill 1 minute, almost like at 20 meters from the start, so it was very interesting to see. And unfortunately for Dongfeng, they were the first one to do attack to the shore. It was quite challenging at that time. There was no breeze at all. But what happened is that the fleet that kept sailing west managed to sail in more tide, so they managed to straight, and that's why Mafre is there now. You know how much it costs to tack in those conditions?
Yeah, it's brutal, but just trying to go in a straight line looks like it's really challenging at the moment. We can see that we've got somebody up the mast at the moment, so that's for 2 reasons. One is to spot the wind, and the other one is to kick the battens across when they do a maneuver, because in these light winds, those highly strung mainsails don't flop from side to side. But here our cameraman, Sophie Ciesick up there, and looks like she's hanging out in her climbing harness and looking attentively at the position of the fleet. We've got Brunel just to their south, so behind Sophie's back. And you can, as we zoom in on the mainsail here, we can see the telltales are barely alive. There's almost no breeze at all on the sail. Just incredible to see such a tricky drift off. But you know, maybe if we can get the camera to sort of pan down onto the cockpit and the rest of the crew, we will see that they're working so hard to try and benefit from all of the smallest winds that Sophie can point out.
And you know how hard it is to drive the boat in those conditions. You have no feeling on the helm. At these low speeds, it's like nothing. So it's all about telltales and develop this extra feeling that only the best sailors have. You need to minimize the wetted surface. That's why you have everyone, all the stack and all the crew on the bow, so the stem can be a little bit up. But even like this, the sail is fluffing.
Even like this, and certainly one thing that these looks like the sailors are indeed furling that big masthead code 0, potentially just to get it off the rig to stop it flapping around, but maybe there's a maneuver underway, or potentially they are just sort of giving up and trying to save the sail a little bit. But a little while ago, I did a bit of a video expose on why you stack the boat, and so you can go back and look in our archives for that, and about why you put weight in the front of the boat. And it looks like the next few hours, all of the photos that are going to be sent back from the fleet are going to be pretty consistent with the crew and all of the stack and material and sails and so on up at the front of the boat, and that's to depress the bow into the water, and try and lift the stern up a little bit, reduce the wetted surface area, and allow the boat to go fast. Although, Gonzalo, fast is a bit of a relative term here today, isn't it?
It's quite relative. I mean, we are seeing relatively fast numbers, 4, 5, even 6 knots, and that's thanks to the tide.
Yep.
Because wind speed is no more than 4 knots.
And indeed, we've got a tool here in the office that allows us to monitor the average speed of the last 24 hours, or in this case, since the start of the race. And Mafre have had a grand total of 4.3 knots. And so most of the progress down the track has been, as you say, due to the tide flushing them out of the River Severn into the Bristol Channel and then finally out into the Celtic Sea. So it looks like we've got Berlin on the helm there. Yep, I can see. So he's not doing 40 knots like he's used to in the America's Cup, but certainly one of the best helmsmen in the world. And can you explain a little bit about why he would be down to leeward rather than up to weather?
Well, it's 2 reasons. The first one is the weight, although the weight is having the keel all the way to leeward is not that relevant, but he needs to see the code 0. He needs to drive the boat with the telltales, and
looks like
he's driving more things than the boat.
And the helicopter, trying to get the helicopter around to the front of the boat, to the windward side, so that the downwash of the helicopter can benefit them rather than blowing that sail around. But don't worry, folks. This is an equal opportunity helicopter. We'll be doing circles of each of the boats in order, so as to not be accused of having.
It's not very easy to get benefit out of that.
That's for sure. So zooming out here will give us an opportunity to see just how tight the rest of the boats are, and we can see Mafre at the moment is leading. Brunel tucked in just behind. Less than 0.1 of a mile, and then a quarter of a mile back from Mafre is Vestas 11th Hour Racing. But look at this. This is absolutely astonishing. We can see in the top left corner Mafre, and then Vestas down on the right, and they're going the same direction on opposite tacks. This is absolutely incredible. Now, Gonzalo, you're the meteorologist. Explain what on earth is going on here.
This is like wind sailing. It's so random. Well, if you like, the reality is there's something behind. And we know that there's a northerly gradient. And what is happening is that Mafre is now starting to feel some touches of this gradient, while the guys offshore are still sailing with sea breeze. The sea breeze will fade off eventually. And how this sea breeze to northerly transition will materialize is going to be key. For sure, it's not going to be a clean transition. It's never transition.
It'll flop backs and forwards a little bit. It'll be hard to see who will be the final winner there, but it's just astonishing to see 2 boats pointing in the same direction, separated by literally 300 meters, sailing in completely different wind. But so here we've got Vestas 11th Hour Racing with Charlie Enright and his crew, and working hard in the light conditions. And in case you think that this is just a beautiful cruise out there, they're all working hard and they're all stressed. But the evolution, as you say, is going to be challenging over the course of the next few hours and the course of the night. So potentially we've got Mafre in the new breeze. Again, this astonishing image of the 2 different tacks, but actually maybe down in the south is going to pay a little bit later this evening and into the night as they go into the Celtic Sea.
Yeah, well, the south has 2 benefits. The first one is that the farther south you are, the more away you will be from the influence of the land. So when you have an offshore breeze, a northerly breeze in this case, you will have a stronger wind speed. And the second benefit is that the tide will be stronger. So right now, the tide is still building, but we have water getting
rushing out
behind the boats. And as we speak, it's starting to run faster at deep waters. So
indeed, this boat here, Dongfang Racing, furthest to the south at the moment, will be in the deepest water in the middle part of the channel, and will actually be benefiting the most from the flushing effect of the River Severn, right?
Absolutely, and I think from now on the next 2-3 hours, the tide is going to flow faster, way faster, farther south. Deep waters, and Dongfang seems to have done a very smart move, because if you think on Mafre now, it's going to be challenging, especially on a starboard tack, to go that far south. So
So Dongfang in a good position. If they want to head further south, they need to turn towards port, which means that they end up sailing in a higher angle, which gives them an advantage in lighter conditions. So they're further south, and they're in a dominating position. They did have a bit of a challenging start. They got left behind early on as they approached the initial headlands, but now out into the Bristol Channel proper, they have taken command of the fleet, and indeed of the overall, because remember, this is your overall leader at the moment. Charles Corjolier and his team of Chinese and French sailors have scored an incredible upset, again taking the overall leader's flag away from Mafre, but again, remember, this is not a double points league. You only get 8 points if you win it, with the 7 points for the win, and then plus the bonus point. And in the skipper's briefing, again on Facebook and YouTube in the archives, I invite you to go back and look at what the skippers were saying about the challenges that this leg represents. But certainly it is this boat here, Dongfang Race Team, that have got a target on their back, because they are carrying a very slim overall lead into this 1,300-mile sprint towards Gothenburg. Now, Gonzalo, it would be interesting to watch exactly what happens with Brunel. So we'll stay on this image here, but it looks like they're sort of tacking over without turning the boat at all. So,
exactly. So basically, they are starting to feel the same breeze as made Mafre to do exactly the same move. This doesn't mean that the northerly, the offshore breeze will fill in. Keep in mind that when you have so marginal wind speeds, just a small change in the surface pressure can trigger a complete different wind direction, and that's why we see that within 200 meters we have completely opposite wind direction. And this is light wind sailing is always about this. It can seem crazy, but it's about being very sharp and using the people that you have up in the mast to spot these changes.
Now, talk to us about the battle between these two wind systems. We've got Dongfang here in the foreground, Brunel towards the back of the picture, and then there's one boat that's sort of in the middle, in the north-south, and that is Turn the Tide on Plastic. Watching the evolution as it plays out on the water, can you make a projection as to what's going to happen next with Turn the Tide? Are they going to be able to stay with the wind from the south, or are they going to get caught in that transition as well?
Well, it's a difficult call. I mean, common sense will tell you that the northerly will eventually arrive to them, but it's not an easy process, this wind transition. So it could perfectly be the other way around, that they keep in the southerly for longer, and that maybe the fleet could diverge, different tracks and sailing.
Different wind systems, different tracks.
Systems.
And so that 100 or 200 meters could make an incredible difference over the course of the next 1,300 miles, which is what remains between now and Gothenburg, with a tour of the British Isles. But one boat that's still in the southerlies here is Sunghunkai Scallywag, as the helicopter gains in altitude to give us a nice overview of the fleet. So we've got Sunghunkai Scallywag here in the foreground, drifting along, getting the nice push from the current in behind as well. But it looks like we've got another transition en route right now. Vestas 7th Hour Racing in the middle of your picture, just down from Mafre, is also furling, and then they're going to be unfurling again. So they will be feeling the touch of the northerlies right now as well. Interesting that Mafre was the first one to feel those northerlies, but as the fleet drifts their way out into the Celtic Sea. We can see that the boat furthest to the north, furthest to the right-hand side of your image right now, Mafre, they were in the lead, but it seems that with these fluky winds in the transition, they have been overtaken by almost all of the fleet.
And maybe it's the tide to blame. To me, it looks like Songhongkai Scallywag is pulling bearing on almost all the fleet to lure. To their lure. They must have a couple or almost an extra knot of tide helping them.
Okay, well, as the boats head out into the Celtic Sea, chasing that sunset, well, the sunset finishes on our first day of racing. Let's have a look at what is at stake with the overall points. This is how things stand at the moment. 60 points for Dongfeng Race Team, and then that slim lead of 1 point over Mafre with Xabi Fernandez, with that target on the back of Dongfeng Race Team. Team Brunel, remember, with their incredible back-to-back double points victories, first in the Southern Ocean and then in the Transatlantic, have brought them back into contention. Just 3 points behind Dongfeng Race Team, followed by AkzoNobel. Vestas 7th Hour Racing, Songhongkai Scallywag, and indeed Turn the Tide on Plastic, who are out on the water still chasing their first win. Anyway, as we draw to an end of this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race, we're going to have lots of little moments where we can get the helicopter out over the fleet, and so I encourage you to tune in when you get an alert on your phone. And we're going to be bringing you live analysis as to what's going on out on the fleet as it happens. And so I look forward to seeing you then. And so I look forward to seeing you then, having these little live moments pop up on your phone. And so we'll be joined again with Gonzalo in the future, trying to unpack the sort of nitty-gritty technical details about how you get a boat around a race course, particularly one that's as challenging as that one. Right?
All right, Conrad.
Perfect.
Happy to help.
Cool. Well, join us again tomorrow for the Quick Fix and the Daily Show as usual, and we'll see you then.